Okay, grade 8s, today we're going to look at percents, and I know it's a little strange because we actually talked about converting percents last time, but I thought I would get that out of the way and then move to this for the next couple of lessons. So I already talked about this last time a little bit about what is a percent. One thing I didn't mention is that they're also called percentages, so it's another name for them is percentage. What I did say was it means out of 100, right? So the reason that percents are so popular is because it's a way of kind of standardizing things. Let's say that you, in your math class with me, you wrote a test and you got 16 out of 20. Pretty good mark, right? And then your friend's in Mr. Yee's class, and he's really mean. We all know that. And he gives a test out of 73. I mean, come on, Mr. Yee, that's so mean. And your friend gets a mark of 65 out of 73. And you and your friend compare your marks. Hey, I got 16 out of 20. I got 65 out of 73. And you want to know who did better. Well, it's actually really hard to figure out who did better because they're out of different amounts, right? So the reason we use percent is because it's a standardized way of comparing things. What we do is we kind of say, well, if you got 16 out of 20, then what would you have gotten if it was out of 100? And it turns out that you would have gotten 80 if it was out of 100. So you got 80%. Now your friend who got 65 out of 73, if their test had been out of 100 and they'd done just as well as they did on their test out of 73, they would have ended up with 89%. So all this to say that Mr. Yee is obviously a better teacher than me. This is a terrible example. Oh my gosh. But you get the idea. Now you can easily compare your guys' marks and see who did better. So percent doesn't mean that the thing actually was out of 100. It means if you made it out of 100, what would you have gotten? All right. It's represented with the percent sign, right? You know that already, I'm sure. So there's 3 different types of percent problems, and I've found in the past that students get mixed up with them. I used to teach one type of percent problem on one day, and everyone got it. And then I teach the second type on the second day, and everyone got it. And then I teach the third type on the third day, and wasn't too many problems with that either. And then came the fourth day, and I'd mix them all up, the 3 types, and the wheels would figuratively fall off the bus. Like, everyone was having troubles. Which type is this? I don't know what to do. Am I multiplying? Am I dividing? So I found this method. I didn't come up with it, but I found this method and I like it. It's one method that will solve all 3 types of percent problems. It's the only thing you need to know. So here's the method. You're actually going to make a proportion. Remember proportion from last video? It's just 2 fractions that are equal to each other. And when you solve a proportion, there's one thing missing that you solve. So here's the way you're going to set up your proportion. It's going to be percent over 100, which makes sense because when you're given a percent, it just means out of 100, equals part over whole. Okay? So the 100 is always going to be there. That's not going anywhere. For every single one of these percent problems, you're always going to be able to put 100 there. Then you have a percent, a part, and a whole. You're going to be given 2 of these 3 things, and you're going to have to find the third by solving a proportion. Okay, so the 3 types of percent problem. One type is when you don't know the percent, one type is when you don't know the part, and one type is when you don't know the whole. But you solve them all the same way, just by plugging into here and cross-multiplying. So let's take a look at the 3 types. The first type we'll look at is when you're trying to find the part, or you're trying to find a certain percent of the whole. So that'd be a question like this. What is 28% of 320? Right? You're trying to find some percent, in this case 28%, of 320. So here's how we can solve this. I start by putting down 2 fraction bars. Blank equals blank. Then I can always put something down in the right proportion. What can we always write down? 100. It's always going to be there, so I'm going to put down 100. Okay, the next easiest thing to figure out is, do you know the percent? You'll know if you know the percent because you'll see a percent sign. Do you see the percent sign? Yes, there it is. It's 28%. So I put 28 right here. Equals. Now I have one other number, this 320. So is that the whole amount, or is that just part of the whole? That's the whole amount, right? We're looking for 28% of the whole amount. It actually turns out that often, but not always unfortunately, the word of will be right beside the whole. And the word is will often be right beside the part in your question, but not always, so I'm afraid that's not infallible, but often is. So yeah, 28%, put the 100, and 320 is the whole, so it goes on the bottom. What your goal in this question is to figure out what goes here. So I don't know, I'm going to put a letter there. I'll put N, and we are going to solve this proportion. How can you solve every proportion? You can cross multiply. Remember how to do it? Take a look at the two diagonals. There's one there, there's one there. Which one of those diagonals do you know both numbers? This one, the 28 and the 320. So what we do to get N is we multiply those together, the 28 and the 320. There'll be one number left over, which is 100, and you divide by 100. Okay? So then you take your calculator. 28 times 320 is 8,960, and you divide it by 100, and that equals 89.6. That's your answer. Now, if you're looking for 28% of 320, should it be more than 320 or less? It should be less, right? Because if it was 100%, that would be the full 320. But this is 28%, so it should be less. It should be about a quarter as much, I guess. And that's, yeah, we have a little more than a quarter. So this looks right. All right, let's do another one. So for all these questions, you can start by doing this and writing down what number? 100. Then we'll look to see if we have a percent in this question. Do you see the percent sign somewhere? I do, right here, 168%. So we're looking for 168% of 145. You want a percentage of the whole. This is the whole. Now, this is confusing to people because this is why I wish I could think of a different word besides part for this. Because what's confusing here is, look, it's 168%. If you're taking 168% of 145, would your answer be more than 145 or less? Well, 100% of 145 is 145. So 168% should be more than 145. Sometimes the part is more than the whole. I know that's confusing. So again, this is what we're trying to find. I'll call it M this time. What are you going to multiply? These two get multiplied together. So you're going to go M equals 168 times 145 and then divided by 100. You don't need to write down this next step. You could just go ahead and get the final answer. I'll write it down though, 24,360, and we're dividing it by 100. And if you do that, you'll get that M equals 243.6. So remember, it should be more than our 145, and it is. It's up at 243, so this looks good. Now, at this stage, some people might be saying, what's with this method, Mr. Welch? I know how to do this. All I have to do is make this 0.28 and times by 320. That's fine. If you know how to do that, great. The only thing I'm cautioning you is you need to know how to do all three types. I find often people know how to do this type, and often people know how to do the second type, and then it all falls apart for the third type. So if you can do all three types in your own method, I don't care. You don't have to use my method, but it is a method that works every single time. Alright, the second type of percent problem is when you're actually trying to find the percent. You're trying to find what percent one number is of another number. So you're given the part, you're given the whole, you have to find the percent. Okay, I'm just going to quickly write down our formula again. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. That way I can use it on this page as well. So let's go for it. We can always start without even reading the question by doing this and writing down what number? 100. 100 is always there. Next, let's look to see if we have a percent in this question. Is there a percent? Nope, I don't see this sign anywhere in the question, so we must be looking for the percent. This is the unknown thing. This is our M or our Z or our Y or whatever. Okay, so one of these numbers must be the part and one must be the whole. Now be careful. It doesn't necessarily mean that the big one's the whole. So let's see. We're finding 50 is what percent of 80. Remember, of is often the whole and is often the part. So yeah, we're getting 50 out of 80 basically. Think of it like a test. You got 50 out of 80 and we want to know what percent you got in the test. So this is set up properly. We can now solve this question. What are you multiplying this time when you cross multiply? This way. The 100 and the 50 is what you have to multiply. So you're going M equals 100 times 50 divided by 80. Whoa, I don't have much room here. 50 times 100, or 100 times 50, is 5,000, and then you're going to divide that by 80, and you end up with 62.5. Now, 62.5 what? Percent. Please try not to forget the percent. It is a percent after all. So there you go. Okay, one more of those. We have 75 is what percent of 64? So even before we think about it, we can set this up. We can put down our 100. We can look for a percentage sign. This sign right here. Do you see one? No, I don't. So obviously this is our unknown. 75 is what percent of 64? So if it was a test, would it be 75 out of 64 or 64 to 75? 75 is what percent of 64? That's the whole. I know it's smaller, but that's the whole. 64 goes down in the whole position. 75 goes up in the part position. So think about this. If you got a test and you got 75 out of 64, first of all, good for you. And second of all, your percentage must be more than 100. You did better than 100%. So we better get an answer that's more than 100 here. So we're going to multiply those two together this time. N equals 100 times 75 divided by 64. So that's 7,500 divided by 64. And you end up with 117 point, I'll round it to 2 decimal places, 19%. Yep, it's more than 100%, which is what you would expect when the part is more than the whole. Okay, the third type of question, which is often the one where people get all mixed up if they're not using this method, is when you find the whole. So you know a percentage of the whole, and you have to actually find the entire whole. This type's not as common, but it's important. So that would be something like this. 30 is 40% of what number, right? 30 isn't the whole number. 30 is only 40% of the whole number. So let's set it up here. We know we can do this. We know we can write down 100. The next thing we do is we look to see, is there a percent symbol somewhere in the question? And there is. It's right here, 40%. So we can put 40 here. And we have one number left over, the 30. So is that 30 the whole number? Only part of it. That's only part of the whole, right? That's only 40% of the whole. So you don't know the whole. You know part of it. This goes up here because remember, it's part over whole. The part goes on the top. So you put the 30 on the top, which means what you don't know is the whole. You don't know the whole number. So this is where you put your m or your n or your x or whatever. And now we're ready to cross multiply. You're going to multiply those together and divide by the 40. So we have n equals 100 times 30. Then we divide by 40. So that equals 3,000 divided by 40. Now let's think about this before we get our answer. If 30 is 40% of the whole, what we want to find is the whole number. We want to find 100% of the number. So is it going to be more than 30 or less than 30? If 30 is only 40%, that should be less than the actual whole number. It should be more than 30. So let's see what we get. And yeah, we got 75. So there we go. The whole amount is 75, and 40% of 75 is 30. Okay, let's do another one of those. Before I even read the question, I can do this. I can put down my 100. Do we have a percent? We do. It's right here. It's 140%. Okay, 140% of what number is 20? So again, this is probably the most confusing of all because 20 is 140% of some number. So 20 is actually more than the number we're looking for because it's 140%. We're looking for the whole. We're looking for 100%. So 20 is just the part. Even though it's going to be bigger than the whole, it's just the part. And we're trying to find the whole down here. But again, because this 20 is 140% and we're looking for 100%, the whole number, our whole is going to be less than 20. It is a bit confusing, that one part of it. Alright, so we multiply those together. M equals 100 times 20 and then divide by 140. So we have 2,000 divided by 140, and if you put that in your calculator you'll get 14.29 if I round to 2 decimal places. Okay, and yep, that's less than 20 a little bit. Alright everyone, there's all your percent problems all in one go. Wow, wasn't that better than doing 4 days of it? We did it all in one video. You guys are amazing. See you later. Bye.